Yo, it's Marcus Faber, and I want to talk a little bit about Tesla stock. So we talked about in our last episode this number here. We thought we were going to go to 780, and I want to talk a little bit about exactly where my video was that I talked about 780. And in that video, this was my first actual episode of this Tesla series recently. After we broke above, or we were right here on April 3rd. So April 5th, we broke above this line right here. On April 3rd, I think it was like a Saturday or a Sunday, I talked about where I thought Tesla stock would go. And I thought it would break above this trend line right here. I thought we would open above this trend line. And that's exactly what happened. And in that same video, I talked about the broader pattern that I saw shaping up essentially. And this is the video right here. So let's take a quick look at this. So this is the ascending triangle that we're going to be watching in the near future once and assuming we break out above this coming on Monday. Well, I hope you guys got some value from this. So that was that. And in that same video, and I'll link it over here so you guys can watch that video, I talked about this line up here. And I specifically talked about how this line, maybe it's 777, but probably, and I think it's more significant for it to be 780. And so I talked about in that video that I think this line is 780. So the interesting thing is that not only were we looking at a shorter term, basically price action that was happening here, and we thought we were going to break above this line here, but we talked about the broader pattern we thought we might be forming in the near future. And we talked about essentially this massive ascending triangle, which is what we thought was the important pattern that would be playing out. And this is interesting because not only am I talking about where I think price might be going in the near future, I'm talking about a pattern that hasn't actually formed yet. You can't have an ascending triangle until you have a second hit. So we talked about this ascending triangle before it even occurred. So if we are looking at this ascending triangle, where do we think we can see price action going in the near future? If we think that this is going to be an ascending triangle and we think this is important, maybe, so we got rejected here, if we start to go to the downside, maybe we can hit this bottom of the ascending triangle again. The question is whether we break to the downside or if we take a different path and we bounce off of this and end up going to the ascending triangle up here and finally break out to the upside. This is the question and what we're going to be looking at exactly in this episode. So if we look at this, we can take basically the amplitude move from the highs here to the low over here. And I can take that and basically, depending on when we break out, let's pretend we break out right here. If I put this right here, this takes us to an interesting point. Where does this take us to? We can see that the line right here is actually, it would be somewhat of a double bottom to this line over here. And this would be a double bottom at essentially $539 around there. So this could be an interesting point if we break to the downside. This basically this line right over here. So this $539 double bottom before breaking back up to the upside. So that's one thing to pay attention to. Now, if we are actually going to the downside, another interesting area just to be paying attention to is this line right over here. We can see that we have this area here that is probably significant. And where is this? We're talking about a high of about $502.49. So that wouldn't be surprising if we do go to this area again for us to break down a little bit farther and hit this right here. I'm not sure if we would hit this or maybe we would just simply go to basically the price target based on the amplitude move. So now let's look at the upside. Where would price take us if we break out of this ascending triangle to the upside? So if I take this same amplitude and say we break out here, this would take us to potentially 950. That's pretty interesting and pretty exciting. And this obviously depends on when we break out. So we'll have to revisit this when we finally break out to the upside. It will depend on when or where our price target is. Let's say we broke out on earnings, like on the 26th. If we broke out on the 26th, our price target to the upside would be approximately $884 it's probably this high from back here on the 8th, and the high is $884.49. So if we broke out of this, basically this ascending triangle on earnings, our price target would be the high of this breakup candle right here. That's pretty interesting. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of basically what we're seeing in the charts at the moment, why we thought that we might be trading in an ascending triangle back on April 3rd. So that's pretty interesting, and it's interesting that this is actually starting to play out. And let's look at the S&P 500 now. So we're looking at the S&P 500 here. We got to our 415 price target basically, and we talked about the other price target based on the amplitude here, which would be a price target of about exactly 420. So that's our next price target here, and we looks like we're going to keep going and chugging along. This is looking bullish. There's nothing that I see that's bearish about this so far. When we get to 420, what's going to happen? Are we going to be rejected and go to the downside? This is very possible. We talked about this area of correcting back and having a retest over here. However, if you get to 420, it doesn't mean we can't go higher than 420, but our expectation is at least just some trading sideways maybe, and just kind of a consolidation that would happen up there. That's just our expectation. We'll see what actually plays out. And this is Palantir stock. In the last update that I talked about Palantir stock, we talked about basically we saw that we closed below this trend line here. We were on the 14th. And this was something that we weren't sure how bullish or how bearish this would be. So we just simply drew this trend line right here. And I simply said if we stay above this line, this would be bullish. And if we go below this line, it would be bearish. So what happened the next day? The next day we ended up going not only below this line, but we closed below this line. This would then be bearish. So and following that day we went down yet again. So this is not surprising when we saw this line here and said that this is a line that would make myself personally change between more bullish and bearish, because my perspective of Palantir stock is that in the short term here, when I saw this rise, this entire rise here, I have been bullish. However, I've been only bullish for the short term. I am more neutral and indifferent of where we might be going actually in the medium term. I've been talking about this a lot, especially in the comments section when people ask me about the stock. I've been telling everyone that I'm generally speaking not so bullish, not so bearish about this stock. I wouldn't be surprised to see us go to 15, 17. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised to see us go to 30, 40. And at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised in a year from now or at the end of the year, us just being at 25 bucks still or something like that. That would not be surprising. Why is that? I just think that people don't understand where the stock is going, and it's a polarizing stock, which also makes me very bullish. But polarizing also means that there's going to be a lot of indecision, and the stock might not go to many places before we finally break out to the upside. Could we break out in a huge way in the interim? It's very possible. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm just saying that Tesla is an example of a stock that's very polarizing and trades sideways for quite some time. And the valuation is not cheap for Palantir stock. So I'm not saying I'm selling it by any means. Even though I'm medium term, I'm somewhat neutral. But long term, I'm super bullish on this stock. So I'm only looking to potentially add more shares. I'm not adding more shares at these levels right here. Let's see, we're technically a little bit below my cost basis. My cost basis right now is $22.80. So we're a little bit below my cost basis. So I'd be interested potentially in picking up more shares. Now, where would I start picking up more shares though? I want to pick up more shares below 20 bucks. So if we ever go below 20 bucks, maybe I'll pick up more shares. If, for example, we hit this trend line right here, boom, I'm going to be adding more shares. So these are some technical levels I'll be using to add more shares. Could we go below this line? Absolutely, we can go below this line. We do have the bias that we think we won't go below this line because we had so many chances to sustainably go below this line. So it doesn't mean we can't like spike down below this line, but we won't meaningfully go below this line is what I'm thinking at the moment, at least. We'll see what actually plays out though. Well, I'm going to end this right here. I hope you guys got some value from this content. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And keep in mind that none of this is financial advice. This is just some random guy on YouTube drawing some stick figure lines on a chart talking to you guys.